Hello and welcome to episode 27 of the Sweet Lavender Knits podcast. My name is Christine and I'm coming to you from just outside of Toronto, Ontario in Canada. Welcome to all those that are new and welcome back to all those that are returning. Thank you for coming back to join me on yet another knit night. I don't have a local knit night to go to, so I've created this podcast as a way of me having a knit night, and I welcome you to mine. The podcast will mainly be about knitting, some sewing, crocheting, and other crafts as I fancy them. Today is February the 19th, 2019, and I've just lost the sun, but it was a bright day. We've had some snowfall over the weekend, and so everything looks a little brighter and whiter, which is very nice. Thank you very much for joining me today, and I have a little bit of knitting to share with you, and a few things that I've acquired over the last few weeks, and just a little bit of a discussion on some of the happenings, I think, in the knitting community. So why don't you grab your needles, something nice to drink, your favorite project, and let's get started. So welcome again, and I want to say a very big thank you to all of you that have been posting comments, and for all your likes and just interaction here on YouTube as well as on Ravelry. You can find me on Instagram as sweet_lavender1 and on Ravelry as sweetlavender1. We also have a lovely Ravelry group. It's called Sweet Lavender Knits. And yes, so for all of you who have been watching the podcast, do subscribe and come on by and check out the Ravelry group, and do join in there as well. It's a fairly small group, so you really do get to meet new people who are like-minded, and I hope will be a sense of community and just a fun place to be. So that being said, yes, do come on by and join in on our Ravelry group, and always feel free to post comments down here below, whether it's questions or even just to let me know that you enjoyed the podcast. I really do appreciate it. So thank you very much for that. I have a giveaway that I should be drawing a winner for, and I haven't done so already. So let me just introduce it here, and I will draw the winner right after the podcast, and I will put the winner up on the screen. I apologize for not being a little more prepared with this. But on my last podcast, I did mention that I had done a test knit for one of my viewers. It's Mary Ellen Megs, and she had released her first pattern on Ravelry, and it is the fingers down mittens, and it's a 2 at a time mitten pattern, where you also have an option of knitting them 1 at a time if you'd like. I knit them 2 at a time. I test knit it for her. I thoroughly enjoyed the pattern, and like I mentioned, it is a very simple pattern. There is a little bit of grafting involved, which was a new to me technique, and it really can be a pattern where you can showcase your yarn. So choose a really fun yarn for it, and go for it. So for all of you who may have missed that giveaway, I do encourage you to go by and check out that pattern and you know, purchase it, because it is a really fun project that you can do over a weekend. So I had opened up a thread on Ravelry, and for those of you who are interested in the pattern, so I will go ahead and draw. My prompt for that thread was if you have knit mittens before, and what is the intended yarn or color. I will pick a winner and I will post that right here. So congratulations to the winner. Over the last couple of weeks, I have been quite busy just doing different activities over the weekends. And when it was my 2 week mark to myself to, it's like a little reminder, okay, I'm coming up to the 2 week mark. I didn't quite have anything finished. So I didn't feel like I could sit down and talk about my knitting to make it interesting enough. And as much as me putting out a podcast, I also wanted to be genuine and with the viewer in mind. And since I am a slow knitter, I do take that into consideration, like not having to show you the same projects over and over again. Yeah, I didn't quite have anything to show you. And then the following weekend, I had to go in for orchid show, so I was quite busy with that. And as soon as I bring home some orchids, I like to spend time just looking at them and cleaning them up and making sure that they're ready to go in with the rest of my collection and all that. So I was a little busy with that. So in any case, I was also looking for a milestone in my knitting with one of my projects, which I will share with you just shortly. And so now I've accomplished that. So I thought this was the perfect weekend to sit down and talk to you about, record a podcast. But I've just been struggling with my hair. My hair has been just doing like crazy things, and it must be the dryness in the like the air is pretty dry in winters, and just the different products that I'm using, it's just either it weighs it down too much, or it's just a ball of frizz. And so yes, struggles with my hair, constant struggles with my hair it's been. But yeah, that's one of the reasons I've been putting off the recording over the weekend. And I'd taken a day off from work, and so I thought I would use it to podcast. If you've been on Instagram, you would have, and if you are part of the knitting community in any way, you would have probably heard about the talk about racism in the knitting community. And I was aware of it quite early on. I was purposely not wanting to bring in the discussion into the podcast, or to respond to it in any way on social media, because of the fact that I'm entitled to my silence. But at this point, I know what I think about, but I have to be sensitive in how I say it. I think it started somewhere early January, and the last podcast would have been about the time when I would have when I could have said something, but I chose not to. And the reason was because I felt like if I was responding to my audience, whether it's on Instagram or whether it's on YouTube here on the podcast, I would be preaching to the choir. All of you are the most lovely human beings who've accepted me for who I am as a knitter, as someone that you enjoy watching this podcast. And when I say that, I have to also say that I don't see me as somebody you're patronizing because of my sex, because of my race, because of my age, because of my ability, or because of the color of my skin. I see it as you wanting to share your time, whether it's my Instagram post or whether it's watching me on the podcast, is for me as the person I am. We all have things that we can focus on that are negative and feel rejected, feel excluded from. And for those of us who are going to do that, it really does not help us. It would not help me. I have to think that people have good in them, because hoping that they will see some good in me. That is not to put down anybody who has, that's not to belittle or to how do I say this, or it's not to put down anybody who has been affected by those horrible things, whether it's you know, hatred towards them, or being bullied in any way, or all of that is real. I'm aware of it, and I'm not putting that down in any way. So I know a mistake has been made, and there has been an apology put out, but somehow it's just been then after that it's just taken on this snowball effect. It's good that people are speaking out and speaking up, and you know, it's good to have a conversation, but we should also be sensitive of it. I feel like I need to apologize on behalf of all of those who've taken something that was a mistake, when there was an apology put out, that wasn't accepted. I feel like I need to apologize on behalf of all of those that who attacked even beyond that apology. An attack is an attack, whether you're trying to speak your mind or not. You can speak your mind without turning the tables on the other side, because then you've just done the same thing with a different knife. You've stabbed the same wound with a different knife, and that's where I did not feel part of that conversation anymore. So in any case, I just want to wrap it out. I don't even know how much of it, I have been talking for a while, but I don't know how much of it I'm going to be putting on. I'll just keep it very brief and short. That I thank you. I thank you for being part of this podcast group, this Ravelry group, anything, like just being part of my community, my knitting community. And you are a wonderful human being for just the way you are. I know we all have our viewpoints, and we're allowed to voice them, but I just ask that we also realize that by us sometimes standing for our rights, we should not take away anyone else's. And sometimes it's just a matter of opinion, or it could just be it could just be ignorance, and we all have it. Like, we're not all aware of everything, and so sometimes that happens. And so when I make a mistake, I should be ready to acknowledge that and apologize for it. If it requires an apology, then yes, I should apologize for it. And when I do apologize, I am hoping that it is accepted. So I think we should do our part in accepting an apology as well. And yes, I do want to say that I really feel no need to be speaking about it here, but I also just wanted to share my viewpoint on it, because I think it's time you heard a different side. Just because I'm a person of color, I'm from a minority race, especially in the knitting community, I have never seen myself as that. I've only seen myself as someone who just wants to be part of a community. I know that there are the community is made up of many faces and different talents, different levels of skill, but it should not be anything more than that. If it's going to bother you, it's going to bother you no matter where. And don't make it about the community. It's not about the community. People in the community are lovely. I've always said that this community is very accepting, very welcoming. I've always felt that. And my biggest struggle was starting the podcast. It was the fact that would anyone be interested in watching what I had to say? And now I can say I'm at the 27th episode. It's a year and a month later that I have enjoyed every time I've sat in front of the camera and intentionally done a podcast because of all of you. So I really want to thank you for that. Enough of that. Let's move on to the knitting. I don't have a finished object to share with you today, but I do have something that is going to just be, you know, to me it is, it brings me so much pleasure, much more than a finished object at this point. Maybe what would be even better is if this were a finished object, and it will be at some point, I'm sure. So let me share this with you. It is housed in my lovely bag from Boku. It is my Beaumont jumper, and I have been working on this forever and ever, and it is still a work in progress. So first of all, let me tell you that I am finished with the first half. So the construction of this jumper is that you start off at your right sleeve, you cast on, and you increase all the way up your sleeve. So you're knitting your sleeve, and then you do your the top of your body with an opening for the neck, and then you go down again, decreasing for the rest of your sleeve on your left arm, and so you work the top half. So that's what I've done so far. So here is where I cast on. I used a tubular cast on, and I'm saying that now. I don't know if I've ever mentioned that before, but I used a tubular cast on. I love the way the tubular cast on looks. It's very polished edge to it. It is knit flat. That is the wrong side. It is knit flat. It's got this lovely cable pattern, and I knit it all the way across, and then you have your neck opening where you decrease. You do a little bit of casting off for some stitches, and then you go across, and this is where I was last time when I showed it to you. So I just finished the end of the body, and I was just about to start with the sleeve, decreasing on the sleeve. So I have worked very hard all through, and I have now finished my sleeve. And then I got to the end, and I needed to do a bind off, and I wanted to mirror the tubular cast on and do a tubular bind off. So I did it in pattern, because that's how the pattern works, is that you work in pattern and then you just bind off. So the pattern does not call for the tubular cast on or the tubular bind off. That's just something that I included in my project. And so when I did the tubular bind off in pattern, first I have to say I am not very experienced with the tubular bind off. I've done it a few times, and always with the end of ribbing. So it's worked out very simple. I've pulled up a YouTube video, and I will actually link the videos that I did use for this bind off in the description box below, so you will have something to refer to if you ever want to try it out. I highly recommend to use the tubular bind off and the cast on. It's a little fiddly. The cast on is a little fiddly. There are a few steps to get there, maybe 3 or 4 extra rows that you've got to do, but it is well worth it, as you can see. So I bound off in pattern, and I just pulled up you know, one of the YouTube videos, and I bound off, and it looked horrible. It just did not look similar in any way, and I just did not like it at all. So I posted on Instagram just a black and white picture just to focus on the bind on, the cast on and the bind on. But what I thought I would do is just rip back. So I undid the whole bind off. I undid 2 rows of the pattern. And then I went back, because all of the videos that I watched, they all talked about binding off in ribbing, and it was 1 by 1 ribbing. So I did 2 rows of ribbing. I switched the pattern to doing a 1 by 1 rib, which you can hardly see because of this video that I will link down below shows you how to go from a 2 by 2 rib and then make it into a 1 by 1 rib before casting off or binding off. And so that's what I did. So you can see that it almost looks like it's still in pattern, but I actually switched it to 1 by 1 rib, and then I bound off. And I am very, very much more satisfied with this bind off, because now it looks a lot like the cast on edge, if you can see that. And they both look very, very finished, and it looks like it's almost like rolling into the and that's what the tubular bind off does, is it looks like it's continuous. If you follow this knit stitch, it looks like it's almost just going right across, and that's what it does. So highly recommend the tubular bind off, and more excitedly that I am now done with the top portion. I have this enormous task of mattress stitching the arm, the sleeve, before I can move on. But once I'm done that, then what I will do, here is the body. Once I'm done that, is I have to go all the way around this body and pick up in the round stitches, and I will be working down in stockinette. So I can't wait for that. It's probably going to take me a whole week to do the mattress stitching. I'm hoping to do it today, but I would rather do some knitting than that. But I know I have to do this in order to continue with my knitting, so I will do my best to get it done. So yes, that is the monster that I've been working on, and I feel like I've accomplished so much, and yeah, it really, really feels good. The yarn that I used is Knit Picks, Wool of the Andes, Sport, and the colorway is Sprinkle Heather. It is 100% Peruvian Highland wool, and there are 137 yards to 50 grams. So I have, the other thing that happened with this is that I, when I did purchase the yarn, which was a few, maybe 2 years ago that I purchased it, I did not plan on knitting a cable sweater. So I was a little under on the yarn, the number of balls that I needed, and so I had to purchase a few more, which I have now received. So I will be continuing on with that. That is my first work in progress, and now moving along to the next one. So as I told you guys that I wanted to cast on a sweater, another sweater, and this is the Rocaine pullover, or is it just a Rocaine sweater? Anyways, I'll put the pattern up on the screen. It's a lovely pattern that I've seen Amy of the Stranded Dye Works Stranded podcast knit twice, I think, and I wanted to knit that sweater. So here is the yarn that I got. It's a lovely, ooh, it's coming out a lot more pink than it is. It's darker. It's actually a dark pink there. If I hold it up there, that's more like it. It's a darker pink, but it's showing more pink on the side. Anyways, it's more purple. Yeah, and this is all I have, not much to show you. I've started off with this green yarn that you see is my provincial cast on, and I've started knitting it, and I just have to do a whole bunch of stocking net before I start the pattern. So yeah, I like the stitch definition. It's DK weight, and I'm sure you're curious to know what the yarn is. So here it is. It is Knit Picks. I've been using a lot of Knit Picks, and I have some more Knit Picks to show you. Knit Picks Swish DK, and it is the Bordeaux colorway. It's blowing out there. And that is 100% superwash merino wool, and it's 123 yards to 50 grams. So yeah, it is really, really nice. It feels very soft, and it's very nice in the ball as well as once knit up. It's very nice yarn. So that is my second work in progress. The third one is a pair of socks that I'm knitting for my son. So this is not done yet. I was hoping to have it done before I podcasted, but my Beaumont jumper took precedence. So here I am on the second sock. I'm just doing a 3x1 ribbing, and it's going to be socks for my 10-year-old son. And here is the one that I've finished. So I will have those done soon so that I can share it with you. But I want to say that I am super excited to be knitting this yarn, because this yarn was a gift from one of my lovely friends, and it is Carla from Scotland, and she and I did a swap a while ago, not for yarn, for something else, and she had included the yarn in her package, which was so nice of her. And I'm really happy, because I usually hold on to yarn a little before I knit with it, but this time this yarn is perfect, and it feels really nice to knit with too. It is Bear in Sheep's Clothing, and it is it's the Bear sock base, which is 400 meters to 100 grams, and it's 75% BFL and 25% nylon. It is British wool, spun in Britain, it says, and the colorway is Arthur's Seat, which my son thought was perfect, because he's very much into, like, you know, knights and all of that as a 10-year-old, dragons, and it's more dinosaurs, but now they've warped into dragons and all that. So he says it would make him feel like he was King Arthur. So there you go. Thank you very much, Carla, for the yarn. And the contrast yarn is some yarn that I dyed up that I used for my older son's socks, the Vittori socks, and I had just a little bit left over, and I'm glad I was able to use up all of it. I would be using up all of that yarn now, which is great. And I still have a lot more of the yarn to go. So I'm hoping that I can do another project with what's left in it, because I do want to use up every bit of this yarn. It's very special to me, and yes, so I do want to use up everything that I can. So that is my second work in progress. The next work in progress that I have is another pair of socks, and these are my February socks that I started. I haven't made a lot of progress on them because I'm trying to get my son's socks done first, because he is a little impatient and wants to wear those socks. And it's in my best interest to get them done, because otherwise he'll be wearing all of mine, and really I don't want him to do that. So there. So this is the February socks that I've started for this month, and I'm working. I've just done the rib. I've done a 1x1 rib, and I think the pattern calls for a 2x2, but I did a 1x1 rib, and then I started the pattern. The pattern that I'm knitting for these socks is the V for Valentine socks. It's a lovely pattern. I believe it's a free pattern, I can't remember, by Ellie of Craft House Magic. So please go out and check out that pattern. And yes, it's such a beautiful pattern. I wish I had more to show you so that I can show you what the pattern is, but it's got a beautiful heart and a little V on the bottom. And I thought it would be appropriate to knit this pattern and this yarn in the heart month. The yarn that I'm knitting is this lovely, it's got pinks and peach and yellows and a little bit, and it's a lovely hand-dyed yarn by a Canadian dyer, and this is Little Red Kettlehead, and this is in her Stout Sock BFL base, which is, let me see if it says, yeah, it's 80% superwash BFL and 20% nylon. There were 365 meters to 100 grams. And the colorway is Snapdragons. So I think it's very appropriate. And I love the yarn. And like I said, I usually buy yarn and hold on to it for a bit before I knit with it. And this has been my eye candy for a bit. But then I thought, I needed something like this during this month to just make it more pink and pretty. And yes, so that is my work in progress. Okay, so moving on now to some acquisitions, and I have here some more yarn, and I just want to show you, like, there are 3 different colors. There is it's just yarn that I purchased from Knit Picks, and they're all the same base, but just different colors. So it is the Knit Pick Diadem Fingering, and this is in the Azurite colorway, and it is a lovely blue. It's got a little bit of a teal to it. Yeah, and I got 2 skeins of that. Then to go with that, I have 3 skeins, and all of these are meant for sweaters. So I was thinking of a sweater quantity, and I usually need about 5 skeins, 100-gram skeins of yarn for a sweater. So yeah, so this is the platinum colorway. Whoops, platinum. And this is more of a little bit of an oatmeal kind of color to it. So I have 3 skeins of that. And then I have 5 skeins of this, which is totally blowing out. There. And I think it's called Pearl. Yeah, it's Pearl. So there. And I have 5 skeins of that. So yeah, those are some acquisitions. And super excited about starting some sweaters in them. They are single, how do I say this? They are single ply. And so I would like to mix in maybe a mohair. That would be nice. Or even do like a sweater in single ply. I know it'll pill like crazy. So yeah, let me know any suggestions on how I do you think it's advisable to knit a sweater in single ply, or do I have to mix it in with something? Let me know. I'd love to hear that from you. All right, and I think I have mentioned everything. I can't think of anything else. This is going to be a really botchy episode, just because I've had to pause a lot and you know, think through some of the things I'm trying to say, and also just been interrupted with phone calls and stuff. So I really do appreciate you taking the time to knit with me. I hope you got some knitting done, and look forward to the next few weeks. I don't have any plans for the rest of February, just trying to finish up my socks for the month, maybe get the Beaumont jumper on its way, on working the body. That's going to take me some time, but I do look forward to catching up with you again, and it'll probably be in March. So I hope you have a fantastic February. Enjoy your knitting, enjoy your projects, enjoy your time with the craft. I think that's very important. So thanks again for watching. I really do appreciate you taking your time to spend some time with me, and I hope you got some knitting done. I hope you enjoyed what you were doing today, and that you will enjoy the rest of your day. So until next time, happy knitting. Bye-bye.